What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, Film Study for Rookies. Today, man, we're going to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs signing Trey Smith and what it means for the team. Also take a look on other offensive line guys around him and why you had to extend Trey Smith, right? Let's dive into the article. So we start off, the Chiefs beat the deadline to lock up their right guard for the foreseeable future. Trey Smith is signing a 4-year, $94 million extension, right? $70 million guaranteed. NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport reported on Tuesday a pact that replaces a franchise tag. Trey Smith is now set to be the highest paid guard in the NFL. Now, the Chiefs, right, when they played the Eagles in the Super Bowl, they had offensive line issues. One person you didn't have to worry about was Trey Smith. Some, you're a little bit more worried about than others, but Trey Smith was the one guy you're like, okay, we're set here, right? So let's keep it going. Trey Smith, extending him, it makes the most sense. So Kansas City officially announced extending Smith later on Tuesday. Smith was tagged back in February, providing him a 1-year, $23 million tender and starting the countdown to July 15th, at which point he would have been locked into playing under the tag had the two sides not come to a long-term agreement. Man, they got this done right on the wire, right? So the 2024 Pro Bowler was one of the two players to have the franchise tag applied this offseason, joining Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver T. Higgins. Like Higgins, Smith is now under a contract with his team long-term. I got to give the Chiefs props here, right? You have one of the best guards in the NFL. Don't take a risk, right? Otherwise, you're going to end up like Cincinnati, right? The Chiefs and Cincinnati know each other very well. But Cincinnati, man, they play with fire too much, right? They got Higgins done, but now it's like they got one of the best defensive guys, and he's potentially not going to be on the team after this. And you got contracts and everything else going on with their draft picks. The Chiefs fans should be happy that they got this thing done. Let's keep it going, though. Goes on to say it's a far different outcome than Kansas City's last experience with the franchise tag when the Chiefs used it on Mr. Snead, all right, the DB, in March 2024 before trading him weeks later. Let's talk about that real quick. Right? Comparing L'Jarius Sneed to the Trey Smith situation, I think if you're playing devil's advocate, you could look at the Super Bowl and say, okay, does A.J. Brown do that to Snead? You could say no. What I wish Bags would have done in the Super Bowl for the Chiefs to win would have been kind of play Trent McDuffie off 3 to 5 yards. And if he sees a tendency that A.J. Brown's going to do a little back shoulder, whatever it may be, then allow him to jump it. Don't press him, right? That's the only thing I would say there. The biggest difference between Snead and Mr. Trey Smith right here is that it's much, much harder not only to replace Trey Smith, but to find somebody who can substitute, right? You can substitute a DB, right? You can kind of shadow linebacker safeties to that side that you had Snead on before. You can't hide anything on the offensive line. And the only thing you can really do when it comes to replacing Trey Smith is kind of add more protection to that side. Well, bad protection is going to break, right? Because it's not good protection. So if you add more protection to the right side, you're taking away stuff from the left side. If the left side isn't fixed, right? So now you have bad protection on the right, less protection on the left, you're going to get destroyed. So it makes sense that they went out, they extended Trey Smith. You kind of lock up that right side for now. Left side needs some work. But as far as Trey Smith to Snead you can kind of cover for, right? Kind of shade some linebackers over there, play safety over there, kind of play the DB off that we don't get beat over the top. That's kind of my take. Let me know your thoughts on that. Let's keep this thing going. So it says the Chiefs right here were already beyond that timeline this year, holding a pre-draft news conference on April 18th with general manager Mr. Brett Veach reiterated that the team's hopes of coming to a multi-year solution with Trey Smith. Goes on to say that such a deal took time to hash out, especially for an offensive lineman of Smith's caliber, right? The recently turned 26-year-old didn't allow a sack last season until giving up one apiece in the team's final 2 playoff games, and he was set to be the league's highest paid guard in 2025 on the tag. That's impressive right there. One, not allowing a sack in general, and it's different because if you go back 15 years ago, before kind of the dual threat took over the NFL, kind of like it has now, a lot of quarterbacks stayed in the pocket, right? They throw it away. When you have Mahomes, you don't know if he's going left or right, right? So to allow 0 sacks, on top of that, there's really no run game. So every snap, I won't say no run game, right? Reed's going to develop more with Pacheco. You had a cream hunt there, right? But every snap, it feels like the D-line can essentially tee off, right? Because it's going to be a pass, give or take. So for him to allow 0 sacks with the offensive line that struggles, right? With a quarterback like Mahomes, almost every snap being a pass, not everyone, but you know where I'm going, right? That's impressive by itself, man. Which goes on to my next talking point right here. Protection was exposed as a weakness for Kansas City during its Super Bowl loss to the Eagles, but even before that, there was a question mark regarding Mahomes' blindside, with the team finally finding an answer, sliding Joe over there to left tackle midseason. Now, when they moved Joe over there, obviously that was a temporary move. That wasn't going to be a long-term move, especially since Joe is no longer on the Chiefs. He's actually now a Bear. So what does that mean? That means the Chiefs went out and they drafted their left tackle of the future, Mr. Josh Simmons. But even on top of drafting Josh Smith, Kansas City is still paying Creed Humphrey the highest average annual salary for a center at $18 million per year. Jawan Taylor at $20 million per year. Fourth highest at his position, and left tackle Jalen Moore a hefty $15 million per year. Now, Kingsley, a 2024 second-round pick, is set to man the guard opposite Smith. It makes for a strong but pricey group of 6 to work through. So as you can see right there, the Chiefs on paper have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. Now, will that translate, right, bearing any injuries and everything else? We'll see what happens. Like I said, playing for the Chiefs with Mahomes behind you, it's like it's a blessing and a curse. When you have a quarterback like that, you want the ball to be in his hands, right? And so that's a blessing. And you're probably asking, okay, so what's the curse, right, if you have Mahomes behind you? Because every snap is a pass. So it's an extra 10 to 15 opportunities per game for a tackle, an end, a linebacker, maybe a safety to come through and try to get to the quarterback, right? And if you times that by, 16, 17, 18 games, however many there are nowadays, right? That adds up to well over 170 to 200 plus snaps compared to other offensive linemen, right? So not only on paper do you see that, but what you don't see is the effort it takes, right? So you see 0 sacks allowed, but you also have to remember he's playing with Mahomes. So every snap, it's a pass. Let's keep this thing going. So before we wrap this thing up, I just want you guys to take a look at just how good Trey Smith is, right? 0 sacks allowed, 9 penalties. Offensive snaps played, 1,118. And like I said before, pass snaps played, 700. Run block, I believe that says, 400 right there? So almost, not quite, but for every 2 pass plays, there was 1 run play, right? For every 2, there was 1. So that right there is what makes Trey Smith so special. The fact he did what he did, playing with the Chiefs, whose offensive line wasn't great, playing with Mahomes, which means more pass snaps, right? More opportunities for the defense to get by, still out 0 sacks. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. So that being said, that's going to wrap it up. Film study for rookies is out. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take it easy. Peace.